This story about life, loss, triumph. Hold up. Let's stop calling it a story, because it isn't. I pray you forgive my haste in improperly categorizing this film as a story. I'm sure you could understand my mislabeling. You see, I took a look at a compilation with a beginning, middle, and end and instantly leapt to story. But there is another form of chronological representation with a beginning, middle, and end. A life comes with that triumvirate, plus so much more. A life maintains a responsibility for actions that result in real-life consequences. So rather than tell the story of how Herbert Chauncey, 78-year-old Harlem, New York native, was one of the first prisoners sentenced under the Rockefeller drug laws, we're going to attach a life to the laws. With a supposed inception in 1973, signed into law by then Governor Nelson D. Rockefeller, and a burgeoning end to the law with repeals in 2009, a birth and death was established, thereby giving the law a life. Now I know what you're thinking, how can a law have a life? The answer is simple, by replacing the years that Herbert spent in jail with the laws that placed him there. If for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction, then the positive action yang that reflects a criminal's conviction accepts the opposite reaction yang that remains from his absence, whether good or bad.
It ain't easy being me.
Your father, we are here now talking about the Rockefeller drug laws and the fact that Herbert Chauncey was actually convicted under those laws. And what we're doing is kind of applying or attaching a life to the lifespan of the law, since it was, some of it has been repealed.
Keep in that the Rockefeller drug law didn't come into effect until '73, but I was sentenced in 1971 under the Rockefeller drug law. 15 years to life. Of course, at the time, I didn't think it was a right sentence for selling drugs. It's what it was. You did the crime, you had to do the time. That's what they had out there back then. But if you got caught, you were supposed to pay. And so I paid and paid. To say that it didn't affect me would be disingenuous, because it did affect me.
The seedlings of this film are planted not in Harlem, New York, but 4,000 miles away in the Skokomish Nation in Olympic National Park. Led by medicine man Mark Colson, a Mural Chehalis tribe member, Herbert's grandson takes part in a sweat lodge. A sweat lodge, not filmed here, is a purification or cleansing ceremony meant to heal the mind, body, and spirit of the participant. A prayer is made that Herbert shed his burdens he carries for missing so much of his family's life. The result is a multifaceted compilation of conversations that span 4 generations of his family, as well as question and answer sessions with Herbert in private and in a mixed audience that consists of military veterans, Columbia University postgraduates, teachers, and music industry elites. We thought we were speaking to a family, but this family ended up speaking for a nation of the oft-forgotten. There are over 7.5 million people in jail, prison, on parole, or on probation in the United States. RDL is the voice for the families left behind. Did the RDL, the Rockefeller drug laws conviction, protect society from a menace? Were you a menace to society? Did you regard yourself as somebody that society needed to be protected from?
Well, me personally, I wouldn't think so, as being a menace to society.
Well, you had a sentence that would suggest that, you were somebody that needed to be. So, I want to ask you, do you feel like you was that dangerous to society that you should be locked away?
Okay, let's say drugs were a menace to society because of the things that drugs led into, or what it led people into. But as far as the people dealing drugs, they were more menace to each other than to society, in my opinion, anyway. See? Society got caught up sometimes in the crossfire of what was going on out in the drug world. So to get rid of drugs, yes, it would have made it a more tranquil society, I believe.
It didn't take long for us to realize the type of person we were dealing with. Anyone who entered into Herbert's audience thinking they were going to hear unintelligent ramblings of a bitter, hard-hearted ex-drug dealer about what society took from him was quickly reoriented. His wise, old, charted voice carved through whatever preconceived notions we may have had like a lazy river through an already established landscape. We thought surely he'd be angry at having served a prison sentence which exceeded that of most hardened criminals.
It was, there were people, well, they didn't call, but they would commit a manslaughter or homicide or whatever, would come in jail and leave a lot sooner than I did. Okay. Not only me, because I wasn't the only one sentenced under the Rockefeller jail. I was the seventh person, I think they claimed at that time, that was sentenced under that law.
Seventh person?
At that time, yeah. Say I wasn't a big time drug dealer, but the people I was working for was be considered big time drug dealers at that time. See? But the part of it is I didn't give up any of those people. And I went to trial. So that was the big part of it, going to trial, not taking a cop out. I knew what the sentences was before I was busted. So I couldn't fault them for doing what they did. That was their job. It was their job to get drugs off the street. They never did. They probably never will, as long as it's coming into the country.
The argument of the street-level drug dealer being the end of the industry rather than the origin has been long-standing. Herbert's youngest grandson addresses the conspiratorial nature of inner-city drugs. His tone is less reserved.
And all this poppy seed, like ain't no poppy fields out here, man. So how the fuck is we getting our hands on this shit, man? How is this shit even making it in? Y'all motherfuckers stripping a nigga damn near when we go through the fucking the airport. Like, so I don't see how this shit is getting in. So I feel like it's designed to get in, and it's designed to lock us up, and it's designed for them to make money off of this shit. They still building prisons. They building way more prisons than schools, than daycare centers, and all kind of shit. You dig what I'm saying? But yet they throwing niggas in jail every day. They throwing us under the bus, man. Like it's designed for that, man. Like, and the shit is crazy. It's out of hand actually right about now, man.
At the time, we wasn't getting the drugs, bringing the drugs in here. They had to be coming from somewhere. But the people that were bringing it or letting it come in, you will never know where it really started at. Because to say the government didn't know or how it was coming in or when it was coming in, that would be a lie too. They knew more about it than we do. See? But we were the ones that were dealing it, so we were the ones that were paying for it.
Street radio. Before we delve further into the drugs and the life choices and consequences endured by Herbert and his family as a result, he takes us back.
Harlem in 1952 or so. What was the vibe like? What were the streets like? What was the atmosphere like?
Oh, it was full of people. It seemed like it was, like you said, partying every night, but it wasn't that people were partying. It was just all having a good time. The streets were crowded. Everybody was more together than I guess they were.
Herbert laments on a time when more businesses in Harlem were black-owned. He attended vocational baker school after graduating high school with plans of becoming a baker. His plans were altered due to a catch-22 of sorts, seeing as the white-owned bakeries wouldn't provide black students with the 2 years experience as an apprentice that it took to get a job in the bakery. Honest work eventually proved to be, in a word, unappealing to Herbert.
Like I said, from there, I couldn't get in the bakery, so I went to Western Union, then the Zipper Factory, then the Army, then back out of the Army, then to the post office, then into the hustling life.
You were in the Army, huh?
Yes, I was in the Army.
You enlisted?
No, sorry, boy. They came and got me.
Came and got you, huh?
In the Korean conflict, they called it a police action. But if you was over there, it was a war.
Sitting in Herbert's presence, I couldn't help but think about all of the movies that have documented drugs and criminal life in Harlem, New York. It begged the question.
Did everybody do it, or?
Oh, everybody didn't. There was very few people, as a matter of fact, did it. I mean, percentage-wise, the population went in Harlem. Most people were working people in Harlem. My family all had jobs, they worked. I guess my brother might have been the first number writer in the family. I don't know.
So that takes me to my next question. And then you kind of answered it. Did you have any options other than selling drugs or writing numbers?
Sure, everybody had options. I mean, the options were, you had options. There were jobs, then you could get jobs. There might not have been good jobs for people in our neighborhood and whatnot, unless you knew somebody or something. But there were jobs you could get. You could work in the garment center. I worked down there, I think, for 1 or 2 days, pushing one of those garment trucks. And that was it for me.
Harlem is seen as somewhat of a dichotomy, right? Harlem is very well known for its affluence, deep cultural history, as well as being, noted as one of the leading communities for drug activity, especially in the old days. Do you feel like the drug dealers won, so to speak? Looking at Harlem today, did drugs overrun the affluence and the history and the culture, or is it still there? Did they necessarily not win? How do you feel about Harlem today versus the two folds, the tale of two cities, so to speak?
As far as drug dealing, it was just a small part of the Harlem lifestyle out there.
Okay.
Okay. There was a whole lot of other things that went into making up the Harlem lifestyle. They had musicians and stuff, the big musicians that were coming through Harlem at the time. They don't do it now like they used to. You had Small's Paradise, you had Mr. B's, you had Count Basie. These were all bars out on the avenue that musicians were coming up in Harlem.
So Harlem had a lot of famous people in it.
Sure. At the time I was a kid, the Cotton Club was a block away from where I lived. I couldn't go, I was too small then. But black people couldn't go into the Cotton Club in 133rd Street and 7th Avenue, right in the middle of Harlem. You couldn't go into it until Bumpy Johnson and his fellows started to agitating out there. They broke down all the restrictions in Harlem. Just like the Savoy Ballroom. They had lots of dance clubs and whatnot. The Golden Gate Ballroom, where I first saw Sarah Vaughan. It's a good place. Harlem's always been a good place. Right now, Harlem is being gentrified. The only thing about it is black people before the 50s and 60s were running a lot of things. They had a lot of businesses in Harlem. See? The more integrated it got, or the more integrated America got, the less businesses people were running in Harlem and other communities that were primarily black. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So right now, there are even less black-owned businesses in Harlem than there were back there then.
And will it continue to get that way? Will it continue to eventually Harlem will we fall as a black community?
In a sense, right now, it is getting to be that way. See, more or less, white people were afraid to live in Harlem at the time, back in the 50s and 60s. To me, even then it was irrational because people in Harlem wasn't as violent as people was trying to make them out to be. There were a lot of good people in Harlem then as it is now. They didn't go around looking to just hurt white people or any other people, as a matter of fact. There's always been that element in any community of people that are antisocial in any community. So in Harlem, more so than other people, you didn't go around looking to hurt other people. They knew what it was to be discriminated against, for people to be taking advantage of other people, to be taken advantage of, in a sense. So they didn't really go around trying to take advantage of other people. That came to be later on when they just got tired of being taken advantage of, for the most part. Most of the people was just trying to make money to survive in the drug game. It was just that it was a dirty game. It caused a lot of people a lot of pain.
If you were found guilty under the Rockefeller drug laws, there were pre-positioned sentences that accompanied the conviction. If guilty of selling 2 ounces or possessing 4 ounces of a narcotic drug, you received a minimum of 15 years to life and a maximum sentence of 25 years to life.
Did the legal system tie the judge's hands when it comes to delivering a verdict that fits the crime? You know, a verdict that might be fair rather than 15 to life? Or did they have that option to give you less? They didn't have the option to give you less, did they?
If you don't help them, though, they're not going to help you. So that was out as far as I was concerned, because I wasn't helping nobody, and wasn't expecting no help.
That take your medicine attitude is echoed throughout. It's no wonder why the act of taking part in drug activity is referred to as the drug game. So many of those involved look at it as a game of catch me if you can. Also in a game, there are winners and losers, but oftentimes it's not just the dealers who lose.
Have to suffer because of laws that were written with, ulterior motives. The motivation behind the implementation of the Rockefeller drug laws were to try to curb the rampant, heroin use that began taking place after soldiers started returning back from, Vietnam War. They'd seen a lot, they'd been through a lot, they needed a mechanism to cope. Heroin was the drug of choice at the time, and a lot of people made a lot of money on the streets of Harlem, and it was an opportune moment for the government to jump in and say, once again, aha, we got you, nigga. And it led to an incessant overcrowding of correctional facilities in New York State. My grandfather, unfortunately, fell victim to it, and subsequent generations, in our family have weathered the effects for the better or the worse.
There are mandatory sentences for just about every felony. I kind of get that. When it comes to the drug laws, I think the flaws are abound. I mean, what they classify as Class A felony opposed to a lower class felony. Associations to drug dealers and how they mandate, minimum sentences there. All of that is so flawed and unfair. And I think that if the majority of folk that were not caught, captured, or targeted weren't minorities, then that would not be the case.
Any mandatory sentence ties a judge's hand. Any kind of mandatory sentence that don't give them a leeway to do what they can do. Now, it's not saying that at that time a judge wouldn't have gave me the same sentence anyway.
Right.
See, but they didn't have a choice then. Once you were convicted, you had to get whatever the sentence called for.
Right.
So yeah, in that way, it did tie up a lot of things. And the proof of that is that people started to see the difference, and that's why the law was changed in the last few years.
In the past few years, with the help of organizations like Drop the Rock, certain sections of the laws have been repealed. What was once 15 years to life is now 8 to 20 years. The issue is not people who fall into these categories should never go to jail. The issue is that the prison sentence is mandatory. While many view the repeal as an achievement and a step in the right direction, Herbert brings it home with a sobering reminder about our judicial system.
If they can find a way around whatever law they have, they found a loophole in it that'll give them the leeway to do what they want to do.
We've alluded to the ripple effect caused by the success of jailing a lawbreaker, the wife without a provider, the family without a patriarch. So let's travel along those waves and visit the ideals and mindset firsthand of those most affected by the law's victory.
I mean, like, in a hustler's mind state, at the very core, every hustler's probably thinking this at this point.
The average hustler want to get rich, man. The average hustler wants to get fly. The average hustler wants to fuck bitches, man. Straight up, man.
The average hustler wants a lot of money.
What type of things were you doing that wasn't the right thing in society's eyes?
Dealing in drugs, writing numbers, whatever I could do in the street.
Harlem, New York?
Yeah, I was a hustler. They called it a hustler anyway at the time. That's what I was doing. And I thought it was right for me. I know now it wasn't the right thing to be doing. Not only because of the jail, because I just know it wasn't the right thing to be doing. It's hard, it's really hard when you're doing things out in the street to stop doing things out in the street. See? So if you don't get started doing those things, you don't have to worry about stopping it. That's the best way not to get involved in things. To try to get an education, get out in the street and do what you gotta do. You work so you can save enough money to open a business if you can, and you do these things, you get into something. That's gonna make money legitimately.
What got you started?
What got me started? My husband started shooting dice and playing cards and stuff out in 132nd Street. We used to sit on the stoop playing pity pat, and rummy and all those games you play for pennies and nickels and dimes at that time. And that was the beginning of it. The beginning of the hustling, I guess. From there, then I started writing numbers.
And what is that, writing numbers?
Well, it was called policy back then. So, right, you take three numbers, you get three numbers. People would play for a nickel, dime, quarter, dollars, whatever they wanted to play for. Excuse me. You could play a number for a nickel, and if you hit, you get $30. It's still a game that's going on today. Only the state's taking over. They call it lottery. See, we call it numbers. There's still a few people out there taking numbers. But if they get caught, they go to jail. You got a fine. They get a fine now. You get out. They don't do time anymore like they used to do. You used to have to do time for right numbers if you got caught. They give you 30 days or 60 days and a fine.
Has you ever been caught writing numbers?
I've been caught quite a few times, yes. Spent a night in one of the jails down there. Spent a night in jail or so, come out, you pay the fine, go right back to writing numbers. It's always been a business hustling with me.
Prince is Herbert's grandson and Jarrell's older brother.
It's two different kind of hustlers, man. You know what I mean? You got the hustler that's just hustling just to get through the day. You know what I'm saying? Whether if he's just trying to get enough money just to eat, you know what I mean, for that day, or just to eat through that day. You know what I mean? Then you got the other hustler that's hustling, that's trying to get real money, that's putting that money away, you know what I'm saying, for that rainy day. That's the hustler we was trying to be, man. It's not good when you do it, you know what I'm saying, but we was trying to do it for the right reasons.
So did you jump in both feet, or was you just half-assing? Did you go in like what's up with y'all went in at it, or
We could say we was all in, man.
what are some of the things that you experienced along the way? Like, I mean, what was you willing to do or go through just to continue on in that lifestyle?
End of the day, man, we done been through a lot, seen a lot. I think I had to put that work in, man, period. Like, at the end of the day, man, like, definitely had to put that twerk in, man, that groundwork. We call that groundwork. Had to put that groundwork in first. And then after that, everything else is just history, man. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't know what he's saying. His speech is guarded, like so many of those involved in that lifestyle. But as they continue, we can piece together the guarded speech, the aggressive tone, the frustrations of life, and what was initially a puzzle turns into a picture.
Like, I was probably like 15, 16, already hustling in New York City. Like, I was hustling weed out there. I was doing that for a while. And then I graduated to selling dope. Like I started selling dope before I even touched crack. That's what was crazy. Then when we got out here, like in New York City, like I never ever touched crack when I was up there in New York City. When we got out here, it was until we got out here and we got our hands on that first 8 ball, it was over.
But you know what's crazy is my first time I even picked up some of that white shit. We ain't sell not one piece that night. Police ran up on us. We had to swallow all the shit. All the shit, right? Probably had about 8 to 10 pieces, 20s. And they talking. This shit ready to come out my throat, man. Kept talking. Basically, he just wanted to see if we had guns on us and shit. Made us lift our shirts up and shit. We got back to the crib, me and this nigga throwing all of that shit up. We like, yo, damn, we was about to get knocked on our first day out.
while the boys, as they are commonly referred to by the family, find a sort of twisted amusement by their narrow escape. Another family member, their oldest first cousin and Herbert's eldest grandchild, is less amused by their lifestyle.
How much of your life do you spend worrying about your family? I mean, like actually worrying, like, do you have reason to worry?
Up until the incident with the boys, I spent every night worrying. If I call and I don't get a immediate response, automatically I assume something is wrong. I worried about the dangers of the streets, and I worried about the dangers of the law. And the law got them first, and in a way, I'm kind of relieved, because if I had to pick a poison, the streets or jail all day, I would rather know that they're safe, and I mean, relatively speaking, safe, as opposed to, you know, the dangers of you know, black on black violence and harm and things like that.
It is an interesting preference family members of individuals in that lifestyle are left with, whether dealing with people who are drug addicts, homeless, drug dealers, or prostitutes. Families across America are almost sobered by that knowledge of where their loved ones are, even in this jail.
If you do get caught up, like you can still come out.
Shut up.
Well, the first time I got locked up, as a matter of fact, I just sold a quarter ounce of coke to someone supposed to have been a friend. The guy he had with him, I found out later, was a detective or whatever he was, a detective. If you're doing something wrong with somebody else and you're telling them, you're a snitch. If you see something wrong and you're an ordinary citizen walking down the street and you call the cop, you're not a snitch, you're a good citizen, as far as I'm concerned. See? But
if there is no honor amongst thieves, then there is even less amongst drug dealers.
How did your friend end up bringing the detective? I didn't know what it was.
Evidently, he got a chase or got busted, and he couldn't or didn't think he was able to do what he was supposed to do. But that was it. And most of the times, I keep telling my grandsons and stuff out there, if you're dealing with 3 people, you better watch 2 of them at least, because you don't know what they're doing. See? I mean, you don't know. And if you're out there in that drug game, you got to deal with somebody. And you can't trust anybody.
Prince talks about a situation he's currently dealing with.
Like, homeboy don't even know how much he fucked niggas' lives up, B. You know what I mean? Like, then, like, at the end of the day, what get me so mad is everything he said was bold-faced lies. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, like.
Jarrell, say what up.
Yeah.
Say what's up.
So we're going in for a suppression hearing. They don't have the snitch available, the person that told on us. He's not available at their hand. and we was gonna beat the state because this is the person who said it. He's not anonymous, so he has to be there. So they don't have him there, whatever. The state drops the charges and the feds picks up the charges. So now this buys them an extra 6-7 months to get up with this snitch, so he could say blah 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 and all this shit that he allegedly seen and said and all this shit. So basically that's what I'm saying, like they were gonna lose that day. So now when the feds pick it up, now they buying themselves more time to get their shit together. So, and which I feel is wrong, like at the end of the day, man.
For certain people that they want, they definitely come at anybody. They don't care if it's your moms, your grandmoms, your aunt, your cousin. If they think that person is willing to talk, they definitely gonna try to come at him like that. Even if they don't think they're gonna be willing to talk, they definitely gonna give it a try. That's what I really meant. Them coming at my mom's like that, trying to get her to tell on her sons. Like, I really couldn't understand why they would even think that she would do something like that.
Come on, man. Right. She done been through that with her own father. Dig what I'm saying? Like, this is nothing new, man.
It's so crazy, man, because it's like he had said earlier, like this shit started with my grandpops. You know what I mean?
But I keep telling people, you can, the first time you got, it's not the end of it. See? You go do your time, you come out, you free. You tell on somebody else, they got you. You got to keep on telling. You don't stop telling. If you get busted, you're going to tell some more. So eventually it's going to catch up with you. So if you do what you got to do, you do the crime, you do the time.
What Jay said, snitching is a lifetime charge, man.
Drugs were rampant. Everybody was screaming about drugs. See? But the people they were busting wasn't the people that was bringing the drugs into the country and stuff. It was the people that were down there selling the drugs. That's who was getting the 15 and 25 and 10 years at a time. It wasn't the people that was bringing it in the country and stuff.
I used to believe, I think we both believed that he was in jail for murder because like it was just some astronomical number, especially being like 7, 8 years old to hear that your grandfather's in jail for 20 years, 15 years, 25 years. That could only mean murder. Like, in a child's head, like who else goes to jail for that amount of time unless they, you know, kill somebody or attempted to kill somebody or somebody's, you know?
Yeah, I remember my grandmother pulling out clipping when I was about 13 years old. At that point, my father had been in prison for 13 years. And I had been visiting him since I was a baby, about 3 months old. And so I thought that, you know, he couldn't be in prison for something small, so I thought perhaps he had murdered someone. And I never asked anyone, but my grandmother finally told me what happened and told me that he was one of the early convicts of the Rockefeller laws, and he was targeted by the governor.
And thank God I made it through the first time, but it wasn't enough. It was only 5 years the first time, only, which is a whole lot of time in jail, trust me.
How many jails have you actually spent time in your life?
Oh, man. Atlanta Penitentiary was the first jail I spent time in. Greenhaven, I spent 8+ years in Greenhaven. Danbury Correctional Facility. I spent 40 months in Danbury, Connecticut. I spent about 6 months in Attica, 6 or 7 months in Attica. About 2.5 years in this state, I believe. In all, I did about 22.5 years worth of prison time. I've never thought I had to hold my head up about nothing, because going to jail really ain't nothing to be proud about. Mm-hmm.
Since you spent time, you know, in a number of jails during different decades, right? Different generations, so to speak, what are like the attitudes that you've seen from somebody who went to jail in the 60s versus the 70s versus the 90s?
The jails became a lot younger. I'd never seen so many young people in prison until I went to Rikers Island. That's when it hit me that there were kids in there 15, 16, 17 years old.
Even though Herbert witnessed the youth in jails firsthand, he didn't have to look any further than his own family for that troubling observation.
How about you? Have you ever been incarcerated?
Yeah. I just came home in 07. I did 2 years upstate. I was in Fayette.
Is that your first time?
Nah, I definitely done been there before.
There was so much more than when I was going to jails in the 60s and stuff. Back then, prisoners were adults, more or less. Jails got, like I said, a lot younger, and the kids a lot more rebellious, see?
I went to boot camp after that. I could have been home in 6 months. But I got kicked out, got in a little altercation with this kid and shit. You know what I mean? Choke him up, slap him up, shit like that. That I ain't really need to be doing. You know?
But that came from being rebellious at home, I would suppose.
You don't know how bad I wanted to stay after I did that shit. Yeah, they wasn't trying to hear me and shit. So they sent me back to the States and shit. You know what I mean? Transferred me from jail to jail. I finally ended up in this maximum 5 jail and shit. Like, this shit is hereditary, you hear me? Like, before my mom's my grandfather. So, like we all doing time, man.
It's just so crazy because me, him, and my mom, like we all three haven't been together for years now, dude.
It was last year that I realized the uniqueness of my situation. Having grown up with my father in prison, it was a norm for me. And not thinking that it was a unique experience, I would ask my friends, you know how when you go to prison or you visit somebody in prison, and they were all like, I've never been to a prison. And then it dawned on me that, that's my experience. Somehow or another, I recognized that it being a unique experience, it had to have shaped me in some way. It had to have shaped my relationships, my outlook. And so I started to really delve into that. Like, how could it have shaped me differently?
As a child, I remember when we used to wake up, I don't even know, it was before the sun was up, I know that much, to prepare, to get ready, to go see Grandpa and take that 6-hour ride up into the mountains where they have them situated in locations practically unreachable to many of their loved ones and family members. A collect call could run you a whole paycheck if you wanted to stay in touch with somebody you loved who was incarcerated.
Oh no, my family came, my daughter, Sandra, she was a constant visitor up at Green Haven. And the family, most of them came, they came to see me off and on. I never worried about visits and stuff. They came, they wrote, they sent packages when they could. My sister, I have a good family. I always had a good family. They were always close together. So.
What do you remember most about those visits?
I remember waking up early in the morning. I remember everybody just congregating in Grandma's house. Well, I think that was the time when everybody lived in Grandma's house anyway. So I remember everybody getting up at the crack of dawn, pre-dawn, because the sun was nowhere to be seen. Packing bags, taxi cabs to the bus depot where so many other families in our situations were all congregating and waiting to take that 6-hour van ride, bus ride. I think back then it was vans, right? To then go to a coal facility, steel everywhere, bars everywhere, Metal detectors everywhere, security everywhere, barbed wire. I remember the barbed wire probably the most.
My name is Shamara Imani Amante. My mom is Sandra Chauncey Amante.
And who's your dad?
John Amante.
Well, where is your mom now?
She's on her way back from visiting my dad in prison. I don't know the name of the prison because he's been moved so many times.
Have you ever visited your dad in prison?
Yeah.
How old were you the first time you visited your dad in prison?
A baby, like a couple months.
So
I got a picture.
So he's been in prison since you were born?
Since like my brother was like 13, probably.
What do those type of memories do to a child growing up? How do those memories shape your feelings or decisions in certain situations? Like you said, barbed wire, steel everywhere. What did that do?
My mother's sister used to tell me that that was like a big point of contention within my mother's parents' household. The fact that they would take me as a baby to prison and they didn't think that was appropriate and that shouldn't happen. And I guess the Chaunceys won because I can remember clearly going on a regular basis. I absolutely do not believe that prison is the appropriate setting for children. I don't believe a child should be subjected to the procedures and that are required in order to make it through those gates to go and sit under surveillance and constant observation while trying to have a sincere conversation or connect with somebody you love. And you're herded like cattle, they're herded like cattle, you're treated basically as a criminal yourself. I don't think it's appropriate at all.
Do you know how long he'll be in prison?
No.
Do you know if he's coming home?
No.
You don't know if he's coming home? What do you think about that when you think about your dad and you don't know if you'll ever see him outside?
I don't know really. Because I'm so used to seeing him inside. I don't know.
But do you still love your dad?
Yeah. We don't get along. Well, not as much as we should be. We don't talk as much as we should. I don't go see him as much as I should anymore, but I still love him.
I appreciate who I have become with all those experiences. At the same time, I recognize how it is really important that those of us who know step in and aid children who are in our circumstance, because children should not have to take on that mantle of responsibility so early because of those types of situations.
I read this on the Drop the Rock website. Shout out to Drop the Rock. What do you think about the fact that the number of prisoners in jail have dropped by 14,500 and crime is down 28% in New York City, yet they still build more jails where they have empty jail beds? Are they planning to put more people in jail, like regardless of the fact that we're not, committing as many crimes? Is it?
I mean, that's hard for me to answer. I stay out of the criminal world, and but I think when it comes to big business, it can be pharmaceutical, religion, the building of prisons and incarceration. Those are all big business items for not just for the private companies that run those things, but for the government as well. That I don't put it past the government to do everything it can to support those things. So if that means finding a way to arrest more people, I don't put it past the government.
It's absolutely modern day slavery. There's a whole corporate entity associated with prisons and making these inmates work for practically slave wages for corporations who then turn around and make profits unheard of off the backs of these inmates. And
I've been there, man. Yeah, they got people working minimum wage. You know what minimum wage in jail is, man? 20 cents, 36 cents. The most you getting is 36 cents.
And you doing a job in there?
And you working all day for that shit, man. You're doing a job. You taking a little, whether you fixing a car, you doing like metal work or whatever, like. But it's crazy.
So you actually doing like they'll contract inmates or the jail to do jobs and pay the inmates 30 cents
30 cents, man, an hour.
And you doing the same thing that a mechanic is doing.
A mechanic is doing is making $20 an hour. You get 30 cents though. Come on, baby, like that. More it's slavery. It's modern day slavery, man. Straight up, man. This shit is crazy.
I mean, it's not right. It's not fair. But nothing's going to change because people just feel powerless and they don't think that they have a voice and they think they won't be heard if they make noise, that people are just brushing aside. Well, maybe one, maybe two, but if everybody you talk to has a family member in prison.
Pretty much all of your cousins have been arrested at one point. You've had...
Wait, which cousins? All of them?
You've had brothers that served jail time. Your father has been incarcerated since you were born. And you don't know if you'll see him. How does that shape, your relationship for what you will eventually look for in a man? How do you think it might shape that?
I guess when I look for a guy, since I can't have a boyfriend until I turn 16. So when I actually do look for a boyfriend, I guess I gotta make sure he has a good head on his shoulders and that he goes to school and that he's taking care of himself, good personal hygiene. He's not in gangs or doing the wrong things and being where he's not supposed to be at the wrong times. Well, the people I talk to now, I guess you can call them, I don't know, you can't really call them bad boys. I don't know much about their lifestyles. Like, you live in the hood. Pretty much everybody that lives in the hood is considered a bad boy. Unless you're a nerd and you don't go outside, which pretty much means you won't have a lot of friends to people who don't really know you. So
I think subconsciously, they always say that a woman always references her father when finding a mate or when, choosing a partner. There's always something that goes back to her childhood and her relationship with her father or the lack thereof.
What I would like for all young people affected by having a parent in prison is to remember that who their parent is not who they are, and that life gets better. It gets better.
Then I came out and about, stayed out about 3.5 years again and got locked up again. So that was in 71. I didn't get out until 86. Think I would have learned enough by then, right?
Yeah.
No. No, not yet.
71.
Not yet.
Recidivism in regards to convicts and the penal system is the rate of which an ex-convict repeats a criminal act and returns to prison. The recidivism rate in the New York City jail system is as high as 65%. The nationwide average for prisoners returning to jail within 1 year of release is 44% and climbs to 67.5% within 3 years. California has the highest rate at 70%. Prisoners are deprived of their civil rights and often find great difficulty securing a job, renting an apartment, or getting an education. In some parts of America, those found guilty of even a minor misdemeanor such as a traffic ticket or possessing marijuana are disqualified from receiving all government-funded education, loans, and financial aid. As a result, they are absorbed into communities that embrace or that enhance the likelihood of a repeat offense.
When you got busted in '71, how much did you have on you at that time? What did you have?
Well, that's in '71. That's when I got busted twice, as a matter of fact. The first time I got busted, there was a half a kilo of heroin. I got in there, I was through beyond the radiator, but it didn't matter. They busted the door down. Cops came in and they locked me up. So that's what I got for 15 years for the half a thing of heroin. The next time I got busted, just 6 months later, I guess. In my car, I had a car. They came out the garage across the street from the house I was living in. It was about, they claim it was 560 some grams of heroin, but they took all the bonita and milk sugar and heroin and mixed it all together and added it all up, see? But it wouldn't matter then, because if it had a little bit of heroin and it was enough for the court, they wasn't going to believe me, they was going to believe the police. But that was the time, that was the last time, last big bus anyway. I got 12 years for the feds and 15 to life for the state. Damn. Both of them together.
For Herbert to keep going in and out of prison like he did, we began to wonder, what kind of effect did that revolving door have on him?
To say that it didn't affect me would be disingenuous, but because it did affect me. Mostly it affected me because I was away from my family, from my children. I didn't get to see them growing up in their teenage years and whatnot. My first grandchild was born when I was laying up. I got the news when I was sitting up in a cell in Green Haven. Her name is Dawn. And well, you'd have to hear my friend see how I was screaming out in the cell block, "I'm a grandfather." So
that's in 1977.
In 1977. And this, dear folks, are the great-great-grandchildren. There's Kaisha, Jarrell, Liliana, Princess Diamond, Eric Jr., Serafina, and Zayden. And there's Mary Chauncey and Herbert Chauncey.
Yes, sir. All right.
My father did whatever he did in terms of his drug business, but he took care of his family. That was his goal. He was the one who inspired me to read more and think outside the box.
When I got arrested,
okay,
I didn't like it. I was really, but I knew that I was locked up. I couldn't do anything about it. I went to work. I went to school. I came back. I got a book and set in my bed, or wherever it was, and I read myself out of prison.
Wow.
See?
But my father was a very smart man. He's a very smart man who, even from prison, encouraged me to learn.
Purple smoking, fly her chick that I like. I can run. I want that breed that.
I majored in media communications and culture in the NYU Steinhardt School of Media Communication, and I did that because you hear your whole life, get an education, get an education, get an education, And so after high school, which was a struggle in itself, I didn't graduate high school until I was almost ineligible to graduate high school. So I had to be 20 or 21.
I'm happy that you graduated. It definitely pushes me hard to graduate myself. All them leapfrog books and stuff you used to buy me instead of real toys. I always knew you was dedicated.
And then I worked for about 3 years in a bookstore, which I loved because I loved books my whole life.
What's your favorite book?
You know, I've read quite a few pieces. I like War and Peace. That was a favorite. That was a good one. I've read it twice. I like a lot of Dostoevsky's books. Really?
Brothers Karamazov, or the other one, Crime and Punishment.
Crime and Punishment, The Idiot. I read Atlas Shrugged. I read that book. It was a good book. The Fountainhead was a good book.
It's one of my favorites.
Okay.
All right.
But I can't think of a book I haven't read.
It ain't easy being
When trying to understand the psychology behind this lifestyle, if at all possible, one can only wonder, what does it take for an individual to finally see the light?
Did it take 22 years of jail? Did it take all of this living up until 75 or so for you to finally know that this was the way to go? Have you always known, but this is just the way you went about doing it, and you know, hopes you were successful in that? Talk about this revelation right now. Is this a revelation, or have you always known this and now you're ready to say, all right, I'll just do this the right way for how long it takes?
Okay, no, not a revelation really. I've always known when I was doing the right thing or when I was doing things that was outside the law. See? Right. But maybe this sort of a revelation, I don't know. But I know that you can't be out there in the street selling drugs and out in the street in the bars every night, spending the money you're selling the drugs with, and accumulate anything. I know you got to invest it in something in order to make it grow. And I haven't done that yet. I might never do it, but I will keep attempting to get it done.
You say that it's very encouraging. And this is a man that's lived a full life, good and bad, you know. So that's something that encourages me as a young man.
Yeah, well, even when I was doing wrong, I did it the right way as far as I was concerned.
Right.
I did it my way, which I thought was the right way. I never tried to take advantage of nobody else out there in order to build me up, step on somebody else. That wasn't my way. I mean, I've seen it done out there a lot. I was with people that did it a lot, but it wasn't my way.
Do you look at money, the value of money, the same as you did when you were younger, compared to your life, the value of your life now?
Okay, you know, that's been one of my problems, I guess. Money has never really, I've never really looked at money as money. I mean, it's something to take care of what you have to take care of out in the street.
You know how to make it.
Yeah. See, I never knew how to keep it. I know how to make it. Don't laugh. You can't do nothing with it. Very few people out in that life has got the money or to show you where they did something with the money they had. You're talking like a guy like Frank Lucas. When they went to bust him, he threw $500,000 out his window.
What?
Out his window in New Jersey. See, it's gone.
We had heard throughout our conversations with Herbert's family that there are lessons they have learned from him. Is it possible that while his family was being raised by the RDL, Herbert was still able to impart certain wisdoms and ideals on his family? We asked Herbert about some of those things he regards as messages worth passing on.
And to lie to family to me it's weird, man. I mean, it's something that I really don't appreciate. Because none of my family have to lie to me. They shouldn't have to lie to anyone, really.
What is one of the greatest lessons that you've learned from your father, Herbert Chauncey?
Stand by your family.
Family traditions, you know what I mean?
One of the best lessons I've learned from my father, Herbert Chauncey, is that family is important. I've never gotten anything but the fact that he loves his family out of him and is supportive of his family completely.
I'm saying even though I'm going through a situation, I still learned from his situation. I learned that you can get caught up on a crime, man. Period, man, and really do some hard time. You dig what I'm saying? Even though I still chose the other route to go in the same way he did. He taught me, man, they would take you away from your family, man. Straight up, man. And I learned some good morals as far as family traditions, you know what I mean?
First and foremost, be a person of your word. When you say it, mean it. Be a man or woman of your word. Stand by your family.
You can still come out after doing so many years and being that old and still get your life together. You know what I'm saying? You can still go down the right road. You can still come out from up under that rock and still better yourself, man. Bottom line.
But also on the flip side, the lesson that he probably didn't want to teach me is, you know, do the right thing. The right thing for me doesn't necessarily equate to the legal thing, but it is the thing that will serve you best. And I bet if my father had to do it all over again, what would serve him best would be to be on the outside of a prison to help raise his family.
To say I regret doing the things that I did would be sort of lie too, because I had a lot of fun doing the things I did. But I would try to say to people, do the right things. Get into the right sort of things to do. Don't go out in the street committing crimes of any kind, because it can only lead to heartbreak for you and your family or whatever. It's always easier to do the right thing, in my estimation, than to do the wrong thing. And you get a whole lot more out of doing the right thing than doing the wrong thing. You get a lot of more enjoyment out of doing the right thing than doing the wrong thing.
See, it's one thing, right, where you telling them what's wrong, but yet they watching you doing wrong. That's a whole nother thing. Like we basically gotta do right ourselves and let them see us doing right. Like, so even though we telling them do this, do that, we gotta tighten up ourselves, man. Period. And that's just the first step right there, man.
Learn from your mistakes that the way we lived and the way we went wasn't the right way. That's first of all. Showing them that it's really nothing in these streets. Showing them that school is the way to go. You know what I mean? Showing them that having a job is the way to go. You know what I mean? Showing them that, I mean, family is all we need, man. Period. Like, you know what I mean?
Street radio.
Stay away from drugs if you can. stay away from all crime if you can. Okay? You get a chance to help somebody, help them if you can. You have to help yourself first. But if you got something left over and you can help somebody, help them.
I mean, even though I'm a little knucklehead, behind all of that, I'm still a genuine person. Dig what I'm saying? I did wrong, but I still got good in my heart. I still could teach another youth. Streets ain't the way to go, man, at the end of the day, man. Like, this shit is just all a setup, man. Like, you figure you've been ducking and dodging for 10 years, 20 years, and never get caught. So you figured, damn, B, I ain't get caught in them 10 or 20, so I could just keep this shit going, you know what I'm saying? But the longer you keep it going, you just enhancing your chances of getting caught sometime, someday, man. So only thing I can say is, if you was in the game, man, and you really got something out of it, you really got some type of good out of it, man, leave while you fuck you up. For real, man. Like, don't wait till it's too late. I know this shit is addictive, but it has to be a time to where you say, you know what, I'm out. You won't have no more trouble from Illinois Gordon, man. For real. Like, you gotta say, I'm done, I'm washing my hands, and that's it.
You can't turn things around. You can't go back in time and make things right. You gotta live on. You gotta go on from where you're at and hope you can do the right thing from now on. But to be right, that's what I would like to leave with you. Just try to be right. So don't hate people for what you think they are. You put yourself in someone else's shoe before you start to judging them.
Do you see any rationale behind the Rockefeller drug laws?
At the time, they thought they had a rationale behind making it. To try to get drugs off the street, okay? Everybody now knows the law was too harsh, but they did what they had to do at the time to try to curb the drug scene out there. And evidently they did a job on the drug dealers out in the street.
So in your eyes, the Rockefeller drug laws were a good thing or a bad thing?
At the time, I think it was a good thing. I think it was a good thing.
Expound on that. Expound on that.
Well,
because I don't think a lot of people would expect you to say that. So, you know, after doing 22 years, go ahead and continue on.
Sure, but if they didn't do something, the drugs might still be as rampant out there now as it was then. So they had to do something to stop some of the drugs that was going out in the street, to help the people that was out there that was on the drugs. See? And if sacrificing a few drug dealers or drug lords was going to do that, then I think it was a good thing, yes.
Even if you were one of the ones sacrificed?
Well, I was one of the ones sacrificed, so.
Your own words, what do you want to leave the public with? Just signing off after all of this, after all we talked about, and now they done met you,
I just tell the public like this, man. Listen, the Chaunceys, man, we a big family. My grandmoms, grandpops, they real strong. They put us all here for the right reasons, man. Whether we did right or we did wrong. Our family always know how to stick together. We fight through any storm.
Against whatever trials and tribulations I have, no matter how difficult the times is.
I'm not ashamed at all of his past. I'm not ashamed at all of my family's history. Because it's made me who I am. It's made everybody in my family who they are, for the better or the worse. I'm proud to be a Chauncey.
Pretty fair for an old swear, I would guess.
American dream.
This information is invaluable, and I have to say it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Good man.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, man.